Hey guys, it's Toby. We're going to be building a gaming PC for £600. Let's go. Alright, first of all, we're going to be using an AMD FX 8320. This is an 8-core processor clocked at 3.5 GHz. Now, this is arguably one of the best processors in the world right now in terms of price to performance. You get exceptional value for your money here. It's under £100 and it's going to perform exceptionally well whenever you're doing anything that is CPU intensive, such as video editing, rendering, playing a CPU intensive game such as Metro Last Light, anything like that. As well as this, it's a Black Edition CPU, which means it's unlocked, so you can overclock this to your heart's content. You can overclock it to 4 GHz right out of the box by doing it in the BIOS of your motherboard. And as well as this, it can go beyond 4 GHz, and we are going to do that in this build considering the fact that we're going to get an aftermarket CPU cooler. And coming onto the CPU cooler, we're going to be using the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. This is a great inexpensive CPU cooler. It's capable of a lot. You can push the 8320 up to say about 4.3, 4.4 GHz. Anything beyond that, you need to look into water cooling solutions. However, we're not going to be doing that in this build, but the Cooler Master's Hyper 212 Evo is exceptional at what it does, and it's going to be great value for your money, and it's good to have in this build. Now then, moving on to the motherboard, we're going to be using an MSI 970A-G43. As you can see here, I previously bought this motherboard myself, and I can tell you that it is a really good budget motherboard. It's got everything you would expect, such as half a dozen USB 2.0 ports, 10 100 1000 Ethernet, support for 7.1 surround sound audio. However, it also has things that you might not expect from a motherboard in this price range, such as USB 3.0 on the back panel, as well as support for USB 3.0 on the front panel via a header on the motherboard. That's pretty rare to find in a motherboard in this price range, so you're going to get exceptional value for your money here. And as well as this, you've also got support for dual graphics via 2 PCI Express lanes. The motherboard also supports up to 32 gigs of RAM, and coming onto the RAM, we're going to be using 8 GB of Crucial Ballistics memory. This is the Ballistic Sports range, which is clocked at 1600 MHz, which is arguably the sweet spot for memory when it comes to gaming. You can overclock it if you want to, so say about 1866 MHz or maybe even 2133, because this motherboard supports it. However, 1600 is more than enough, and it's low profile memory, so it's not going to get in the way of our CPU cooler. Coming onto the graphics cards, we're going to be using a Gigabyte GTX 770. The GTX 770 is an outstanding card, and it's capable of playing pretty much any game that you throw at it. And with the Gigabyte modification, we have the WindForce cooling system, which allows it to be running at 1.2 GHz almost right out of the box. Games that this card can play include pretty much everything that you can think of. Skyrim and Minecraft, all of the moddable games that have a lot of texture packs and stuff like that, this card can run it exceptionally well with the 2 GB of GDDR5 memory. Battlefield 4, Metro Last Light, as we mentioned before, Crysis 3, CSGO, League of Legends, Dota 2. You can throw pretty much anything at this card and it will run it maxed out at the highest possible settings. An alternative to the GTX 770 is the AMD R9 280X. The one we have here is from XFX, and it has a dual fan cooling system. It's quite good. It's not as good as the WindForce model on the GTX 770. However, this is a slightly cheaper option, and you're going to get more or less the same kind of performance. The R9 280X is a really capable card, and it can pretty much match the GTX 770 right across the board. It's got 3 gigs of GDDR5 memory compared to the 2 gigs on the GTX 770. So that means if you're ever going to be using like texture packs and stuff in Minecraft or Skyrim, it's going to be able to load just a little bit more because it has 1 gig extra GDDR5 memory. Other than that, the games it can play maxed out are pretty much exactly the same as the GTX 770. You've only got a slight advantage in games that support mantles such as Battlefield 4 and Thief. Other than that, it's a really solid card, and it's pretty much a slightly cheaper option if you want to spend a little bit less on the build. Coming onto the hard drive, we're going to be using a 1TB Western Digital Caviar Blue. This is pretty much a standard across all of the builds right now. 1TB is going to be more than enough for our games, our music, our movies, anything like that. If you ever need more space, you can get another one of these, or you can upgrade it to the 2TB model. If you ever need less space, you can get a 500GB model. Alternative storage options such as SSDs are available. However, we're not going to be using any in this build. You can find an optional SSD recommendation from me in the product links, which can be found in the description below. Coming on to the power supply, we're going to be using the Corsair CX600M. This is a 600 watt power supply, which means we're going to have more than enough power for our build and for overclocking, so we can push the 8320 to above 4 GHz as we mentioned before. And yeah, other than that, it's a modular power supply, which means you don't have to use all of the cables. You can pick and choose which cables you need according to what is required for our components. Also, it's 80+ bronze certified, which means it's going to give you clean and efficient power. And finally, coming onto the case, we're going to be using a Corsair Carbide Series 200R. As you can see here, I previously bought this case before, and it's currently the case that is housing my build right now. It's a really solid case, it's designed really well, most of it is made out of steel, however there are some bits made out of plastic such as the hard drive cage and the optical drive cage. The reason they're made of plastic is because they have toolless installation, so you don't have to screw in any hard drives or optical drive. They will sit there and they will sit there firmly in place and they will not move. That is how good the structure is in this case. Other than that, it's got good airflow and it's got support for front panel USB 3.0, so we can use the front panel header on our motherboard. And as well as this, you can always upgrade it in the future to have water cooling solutions. You can't fit a H100i in here, but you can fit a H80i or any other closed loop cooling systems from other manufacturers. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the Corsair Carbide Series 200R. There is also a windowed model available, and there are also links to other cases which can be found in the product links in the description below. And yeah, that's it guys, thanks for listening. Leave us a like if you like this video, leave some feedback down below in the comments. All the links to all the components can be found in the description below. If you're planning on buying any of the components in this video, please use our links as it really does help us a lot. It says this on the screen right now and I cannot state this enough. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and we'll catch you next time.